Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press. And join us for the upcoming Central Valley Daily Social. Come to the KVPR studios to get a behind-the-scenes look at the making of this podcast. Join us Thursday, October 9th for pizza, drinks, and a Q&A with the podcast team. Space is limited. Find more details, including how to RSVP, at kvpr.org/events.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. Happy Friday, it's October 3rd. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. The federal government remains partially shut down, and a deal to get it back open is nowhere in sight.
We need to ensure that we do everything possible to maintain the ability for over 25 million Americans to be able to continue to have their health care insurance.
Coming up, Fresno Congressman Jim Costa tells us what the biggest demands from his party are to get to a deal. But first, these headlines. Hard Rock Casino Tejon is set to open at the base of the Grapevine next month. It's a partnership between Hard Rock International and the Tejon Indian Tribe. It's 15 miles south of Bakersfield, located on tribal land. The casino includes a 150,000 square foot gaming floor and will showcase music memorabilia from Hard Rock's collection. A well-known rock climber fell to his death this week in Yosemite National Park. Balin Miller was a skilled and renowned alpinist from Alaska. He was climbing El Capitan at the time of the deadly accident. Miller's mother said on social media she was broken over her son's loss. The death came on the first day of the government shutdown, which limited services inside the park. And other national parks across the country will remain partially open during the government shutdown. Joshua Tree National Park will operate with a skeleton crew, and conservationists worry that could spell danger. From our California newsroom partner, KVCR in San Bernardino, Madison Ament reports.
Just maintenance and public safety workers will be on the job at Joshua Tree. That's according to the Department of the Interior's contingency plan. Chance Wilcox is with the National Parks Conservation Association that works to protect Joshua Tree. He's worried that Joshua trees and the park will get trashed by visitors like it was during the shutdown in 2019.
It took months to recover from. We saw a lot of issues that were irreparable after the fact,
including people running over Joshua trees and tortoises. The National Park Conservation Association is pleading with the federal government to close the park to protect it.
That was Madison Ament from our news partner, KVCR. Officials at CSU Bakersfield formed a commission on Thursday to oversee its athletics department. As KVPR's Rachel Livenall reports, this comes after recent turnover and an allegation against an athletics staffer.
This commission is aiming to improve the culture at the university's athletic department. According to an email sent to staff by the university's president, Vernon B. Harper, the commission will oversee structural changes and recommend different oversight. This comes as an assistant basketball coach was recently arrested on charges of human trafficking. The department has also faced high turnover in the last few years among its coaching staff. The university failed to respond to multiple requests for comment about the commission and turnover. For KVPR News, I'm Rachel Livenall.
The sole survivor of a crash that left 7 farm workers dead last year in Madera County is suing the company that employed them. The survivor, along with family members of the deceased farm workers, alleged that Lion Farms used an unsafe worker system to transport workers. The farm workers were on their way to work when a pickup truck slammed into their van. Most of them were killed instantly. The Fresno Bee reports the company responded in a filing to say the crash was due to negligence by the farm workers.
Support for Central Valley Daily comes from Body 20 in Fresno's Fig Garden Village, offering full-body electromuscle stimulation training sessions. It's a high-tech, time-efficient way to help preserve and rebuild lean muscle. Each 20-minute one-on-one session is guided by a certified coach using FDA-cleared technology. Body 20 accepts health savings account cards. More information available by searching the Fig Garden location at body20.com.
And now to our main story. At the time of this recording, Thursday night, the U.S. government remains under a partial government shutdown. Democrats and Republicans remain at a stalemate over a funding plan that will help keep federal agencies running. On yesterday's episode, we spoke with a journalist who gave us an overview of why the government shut down and how the shutdown will impact us here in California. Today, we wanted to hear directly from someone who's dealing with this firsthand in Washington. Democratic Congressman Jim Costa represents California's 21st congressional district, which includes Fresno, Kingsburg, and Visalia. Congressman Costa joins me to talk more about this shutdown debate. Hi, Congressman.
Hello, Elizabeth. It's always good to be on Valley Public Radio, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to have a conversation and to ensure that your listeners have an opportunity to have a better understanding of how I look at this challenges we're facing right now at this time.
Yeah, we appreciate you making time, especially right now. I'm going to start with something that surprised a lot of people. On the homepage of several major government agency websites, there's a statement, and it says, quote, "The radical left has chosen to shut down the United States government in the name of reckless spending and obstructionism." So when you see that label, radical left, they're talking about the Democratic Party. Just curious, what's your response to that specific label, radical left? We're hearing that a lot.
Well, very disappointed. And under the Hatch Act, I'm not sure that it's illegal. It's certainly not the way to foster bipartisan cooperation. It's never been done under any Democratic administration, and there's usually a line between the official side of government responsibilities and the political side. And this is taking a government agency, in this case, Health and Human Services, and using the website for their political agenda. And it's just wrong. It's not appropriate.
I wanted to get your response to some comments made on Thursday by Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson, and I actually have a clip here.
Don't ask the Republicans what we should be doing or what we should be negotiating. I don't have anything to negotiate. I sent them in good faith exactly what they had voted for before. We did not put any Republican provisions in that.
What Speaker Johnson's referring to there at the end is that this bill is similar to a budget bill that was passed by Congress earlier this year. But I want to ask you about Johnson's comments on negotiating. If Republicans are saying there's nothing to negotiate, does that mean that Democrats will just have to eventually give in to help keep the government functioning?
Well, in all of the previous continuing resolutions that we've passed in recent years, and I might add when the Republicans in the majority, they've had to have Democrats provide the majority of votes to pass these continuing resolutions. But they were clean resolutions in the sense that they continued funding at the previous level that had already been passed by the Congress. This is not the case. This reflects a May continuing resolution that departed from the budget that we had passed last year under the Biden administration. And that's why it didn't have bipartisan support except over in the Senate. And to say this is clean, this is their own imprimatur. This is not something that Democrats sat at the table with. And so for the speaker to make that claim, I think really ignores the facts.
You know, there's been so much finger pointing on both sides. I would love if you could lay out for listeners specifically what Democrats are demanding in order to support this budget bill. And hopefully plain English for regular folks to kind of grasp. But what's really the sticking point here?
Well, in plain English, and there have been finger pointing on both sides, to be sure, and that's not unusual when you have a government shutdown. The last time we had this was under the previous Trump administration. It was the longest government shutdown in history, 35 days. I certainly hope that is not an attempt that he wants to break his last record. But the fact is that we believe that with the tax credits for the Affordable Health Care Act expiring at the end of this year, that we need to ensure that we do everything possible to maintain the ability for over 25 million Americans to be able to continue to have their health care insurance. That's what this is all about. And while the Republicans have indicated they're willing to have that conversation once the continuing resolution is passed and government is reopened, as a part of the budget discussion that we should have finished on October 1, now they're extending that date in their view to November 21st. But there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. And more importantly, notices are going out now where the open enrollment for the Affordable Health Care Act. And people in my district, families, are going to be hit by premium hikes on these notices unless we ensure that these tax credits can be continued beyond this year.
We recently interviewed the executive director of Covered California, which is the public marketplace for folks in the state of California. I want to be clear, though. Do you fear that Republicans are saying they will consider continuing those tax credits, but you think they won't actually take action? Is that sort of like what you're alluding to?
Well, there are no guarantees, as you just played on the quote from Speaker Johnson, I guess in the last 24 hours. There's nothing to negotiate. Now, they've vocalized a willing to discuss extending the tax credits for the Affordable Health Care Act, but that's it. They're willing to discuss it. Well, that doesn't give the constituents of my district any confidence. The 65,000 people that have benefited as a result of the tax credits provided under the Affordable Health Care Act. And this is on top of the cuts that were made earlier this year in that one big bill. I don't call it beautiful, and they're not calling it beautiful anymore as well, that had the largest cut in healthcare in America ever, $1.2 trillion. And at the same time, provided tax cuts to the various wealthiest people in our country and added $3.2 trillion to our debt. I thought the Republicans always used to talk about the impacts of the debt, but in this big bill, the only significant legislation they've passed this year, they've added $3.2 trillion to the debt.
I don't mean to belabor this Affordable Care Act question, but I do want to mention something, because something in the news that keeps coming up is that people in this country without legal status are being covered by the Affordable Care Act. Now, that is true to an extent in California, although that has slightly been rolled back by Governor Newsom recently. Can you explain, is funding coming, federal funding, going to Medi-Cal in California for people without legal status, or is that state funding covering people without legal status?
That's state funding.
Okay.
And again, it's a political canard that's a lie. It's not factual. There's a federal law that prevents healthcare funding from going to people who are here undocumented.
So states have a choice whether they do that or not with their own
money.
Correct.
And California, in the past, tried to provide some additional funding because of the impacts of many of those people who are undocumented, work in agriculture and the hospitality industry, have been here 5, 10, 15 years, and they wanted to give them that opportunity. But that's been cut back, as you noted, by Governor Newsom. And for them to try to indicate that Democrats are holding out, and we've prevented the government from being funded on this continuing resolution because we want to provide money for undocumented people, is false.
Okay.
And they know it's false, but yet they think it's politically good to mislead people as they're doing, because it's not accurate. It's not accurate at all. It's a lie.
Well, I'm curious to know what next steps look like for you and your fellow Democrats as you navigate this situation.
Well, I think that we got to continue to speak out on why we have not voted for the continuing resolution. It's not good. We must keep government functioning for the American people and for our economy. But the Republicans have not been willing to negotiate any of these items. And we think that the most important priority right now, because notices are going out on the tax credits for the Affordable Health Care Act, to raise this to the nation's attention, saying, our Republican friends, our colleagues, this is something important to all Americans, regardless of your registration. The Affordable Health Care Act has provided insurance to Americans who previously were not able to qualify. In my previous congressional district, I had 24% of my constituencies had no health care insurance whatsoever, none. And 17% of my constituents were underinsured. We passed this in 2010. As a result of that, the people with no insurance in my other congressional district dropped from 24% to 10%, and the underinsured improved dramatically. That's a big deal. And so the 65,000 or more constituents I represent today are going to be getting notices about the increase in their health care. And I want to make sure that they understand that's not something I support, and that we need to negotiate this as a part of reopening government and working on the other budget items that are very important.
Congressman Jim Costa, representing California's 21st Congressional District. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you, and love to be on Valley Public Radio, and next time I'll be available and we can discuss in further detail the impacts on agriculture communities here in the Valley and the Supplemental Nutritious Assistance Program benefits for people that are food insecure. It's important.
And we would like to note that we originally planned for this episode to have commentary from Congressman Costa and Republican Congressman Tom McClintock about this shutdown. McClintock represents North Fresno, Modesto, and parts of the Sierra. Unfortunately, his staff canceled. We also reached out to the staff of local Republican representatives David Valadeo and Vince Fong. They both declined an interview. And that is today's show. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. You can find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
Sources and methods, the crown jewels of the intelligence community. Shorthand for how do we know what's real? Who told us? If you have those answers, you're on the inside, and NPR wants to bring you there. From the Pentagon to the State Department to spy agencies, listen to understand what's really happening and what it means for you. Sources and Methods, the new national security podcast from NPR.